I want to make it clear you don't need to know things about Mars to do these Mars projects. They're pretty simple. I'll pass Emma some PowerPoints that we have. Basically, it's the same with everything else. You just introduce yourself. You go over some brief points about Mars, like it's half the size of Earth, it's farther away from the sun, so you have less solar energy. It's hard to get there because it's so far away, and therefore we can't send humans because it's expensive and dangerous and hard to do. So essentially, it's really kind of like understanding, okay, so how do we do this? Well, we do remote sensing, and we have to send rovers and satellites and landers there and collect information. So we've got two different demos that, we kind of start off with the same sort of intro for each one. The first demo is this big giant tub, which will be consolidated. This was unpleasant, as Paige and I found out. So this one is just basically you introduce, and then you're like, okay, so we have rovers. So I personally, one of my kind of mantras when I do Rocking Out is to make sure that you tell the students that they get to be the scientists today, because they really like it because they don't necessarily know that they can be scientists. And that's like a job option, a career opportunity. And so I'm like, you guys get to be scientists. And they all like, oh, yay. So this one I'm like, okay, so you guys are going to pretend you're like a Mars rover, and therefore you are going to be analyzing different rocks. But instead of analyzing the rocks, the rover has to, do some preparation before it can put it into its instruments. And it basically scrapes little rocks and makes little dust and then puts it into the instruments. So that's what you're going to do, is you're going to be looking at rock dust. Essentially. And so we've got 4 different rock dusts. We've got salt, sugar, baking soda, and flour. And so what you'll do is, generally you'll have 2 people doing this. One person will be doing like the intro presentation. The other one's going to be preparing the cups. You need 4 cups per group, and you kind of lump like 5 or 6 students into a group. You generally don't want more than that, but 4 is usually like the best number. 5 and 6 is okay. And essentially what they do is you start off first being like, okay, you have to make observations. How can you tell these apart? And so the cups will be, you label them like 1, 2, 3, 4. And so you have them just look at it. They can touch it. Don't have them taste it. A lot of them want to like stick their mouths in it and be all disgusting. We don't want that. We want it to be sanitary. But you want them to be like, okay, what's the texture like? What does it smell like? How does it feel? Any color differences? And you have them write down the observations. So that's what you always want to do, is like write down all your observations. So they'll do that, and you want to keep them from guessing, because they'll always like, that one's sugar. And you'll be like, why is that sugar? Because it's sugar. I know what sugar looks like. Okay, well, what does sugar look like? You want them to like actually go through and make some ideas of like, okay, what does sugar look like? How is it different than the salt? Because there are differences. Then once that's done, you'll fill out these bigger cups with water, and you'll pass. You don't want to put the whole thing with water, because then they'll pour it into like everything and like drown it. Just pour like a little bit of water and tell them, okay, you're gonna pour a little bit of water in each of those cups. There are stirring sticks you pass out as well. They can stir it up. And then you'd be like, okay, write down your observations, what has changed? And then they kind of go like, okay, that's a science experiment. That's what like the rovers can do, is, do experiments to test it out. So then they can look at the differences, write it down. You're still having them guessing, you're trying to keep them away from that. And then you pass out vinegar, since vinegar is already diluted with water. And then you'll put vinegar, pour a little bit of vinegar in with the water powder mixture. This is where it can get messy, because kids will start seeing fizzing with the baking soda, and then they'll all start screaming and going crazy. And then some students will be like, oh, what if I pour the whole thing of vinegar in there? So again, only a little bit of vinegar for each of the groups. Even then, you're going to have to get towels, because students will inevitably want to do as much as they can with it. And then you're like, okay, so now you have all your observations, make guesses on what you are, and then you kind of come together, and then you be like, okay, what does everybody think powder 1 was? And then, or before you ask what it is, you want to ask them, what were your observations? When it was dry, when it was wet, when it had vinegar. And then they all do their guesses, and then you kind of like, okay, yeah, this is this, and that's about it. And usually you are just in time, so you have to time yourself. It gets messy, so be prepared for that.
When you say just in time, how much time do you usually allot for this?
I mean, so it depends on your class schedule. So usually you have like 50 minutes about for the whole class, and so I spend maybe 10 minutes in the beginning preparing for the thing because classes are back to back, so you have only enough time to actually get all the powders into the cups. So like 10 minutes to like put it in the cups and explain and introduce yourself, and then you kind of break it up into like 10-minute chunks, like 10 minutes to like look at dry, 10 minutes to look at wet, 10 minutes to do vinegar, and then wrap up. But you get a feel because you're going around constantly with all the students and being trying to be like, what are the observations? Because they will not want to make observations. They will just want to be like, that's sugar. Can I taste it? Or doing something else randomly. So you kind of like keeping them on track to make sure they're being scientific and making their observations.